Module 6.1 Ratios. Vocabulary terms. Number 1, ratio is a comparison of two quantities. You can also just mention it as comparing two numbers. A ratio shows how many times as great one quantity is than another. Each number in the ratio is called a term. In the example below, 2 and 5 are the terms of the ratio. There are 3 ways to write a ratio. You could compare the two numbers with using the word 2 in it, TO, so 2 to 5. You can also have a colon, the 2 ... 5, that also represents 2 to 5. And the fraction form 2 over 5 means 2 to 5. Now, if you remember, the parts of a ratio are called terms. We do not call them numerator or denominator. Even though one of the forms of a ratio is a fraction means parts to a whole. Now, when you're comparing numbers, it does not always have to represent parts to a whole. That's why we call them terms. Equivalent ratios are ratios that name the same comparison. You can find equivalent ratios by using a table or multiplying, dividing both terms of a ratio by the same number. Equivalent ratios have a multiplicative relationship. That means that the numbers have a multiplicative relationship, like you're multiplying or dividing. So let's take a look at number 1, 4 over 12. I want to make an equivalent ratio. It's very similar to when we made equivalent fractions. You're multiplying or dividing the numerator denominator in a fraction by the same number. So it's the same concept. We're going to either multiply or divide both terms with the same number. So look at 4 over 12. To make an equivalent ratio, you could either multiply or divide. In this example, we divided both the top term and the bottom term by 2 to get 2 over 6. Remember, the question is not asking for you to make the ratio in simplest form. They're just asking you to create an equivalent ratio, which is meaning you're either dividing or multiplying the top and the bottom term by the same numbers. So when I divide the top and bottom term both by 2, we get 2 over 6, which means that 4 over 12 and 2 over 6 are equivalent ratios. Now with 4 over 12, I could have multiplied them both by 2. And if you did that, 4 times 2 is 8, 12 times 2 is 24. So 4 over 12 and 8 over 24 are also equivalent ratios. Now let's look at question 2. 9 over 11, we want to make equivalent ratios. So with 9 over 11 in my example, I multiply the top and the bottom term both by 3, and we get 27 over 33. So 9 over 11 and 27 over 33 are equivalent ratios. Now, to create equivalent ratios, it does mention that you can find or you can create equivalent ratios by filling out a table or multiplying and dividing. So the first 2 examples, I just multiplied, divided the top and bottom terms. Now, how do we create a table? So here's an example. Let's say a number of t-shirts is on top, total cost is on the bottom. Let's say one t-shirt costs $8. That's in the first. I want to now see how much, I want to fill out this table. So I could put 2 on top. So if one shirt costs $8, 2 shirts would mean I would take 1 times 2 to make 2, and then take the bottom term, 8, multiply that by 2 to get 16. So 2 shirts cost $16. So I'm filling out the table as I go. Now your table does not always have to be filled out as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Numbers won't always work out like that. So let's say we want to find the cost of 5 shirts. So you take the 1 times 5 on the top, and then on the bottom you do 8 times 5 to get 40. So now I'm going to take the numbers in my table, put them on the side, and they all form equivalent ratios. 1 over 8 equals 2 over 16, which equals 5 over 40. They're all equivalent ratios. All of the bottom numbers are 8 times greater than the top numbers. They all equal 1/8, which means that the bottom term is 8 times the amount of the top term. I would like you to pause this. I'm going to make it smaller and answer the 6 questions, and then you can unpause and start going over the problems. So now let's make it a little bigger. So the first question asks, write the ratio of cats to dogs. Number 2, write a ratio of dogs to total pets. So let's scroll down. See how you did. Write a ratio of cats to dogs. There are 5 cats to 1 dog. So you could have written any one of those examples, those 3. You did not have to write all 3, but you could just pick one of them. Number 2, write a ratio of dogs to total pets. There's 1 dog, and if you notice, if you count all the pets up, there's 6 pets in all. So just like I mentioned, ratio can be written in fraction form, but fraction means parts to a whole. If you look at the first question, it's asking you to compare one part of the picture to another part of the picture. Cats to dogs, so part to part. If you look at question number 2, it's asking you to compare dogs to all of the pets. That would represent parts to whole. So that's why we name each number in a ratio as a term instead of a fraction. It does not always represent parts to whole. If there are 15 cats in an apartment complex, how many dogs are there? So what I would do is I'm comparing cats to dogs. So again, I would look at my ratio of cats to dogs. And what I did is I wrote cats on top over dogs. There are 5 cats to every 1 dog. The question's asking to find 15, if there were 15 cats. That means that if there's 5 cats to 1 dog, I need to change the top term into 15. How would I change 5 to 15? By multiplying by 3. Now, if I multiply the top term by 3, you multiply the bottom term by 3. That means for every 15 cats, there's going to be 3 dogs. So if I were to go back up in this picture and I drew 15 cats, then for every 5 cats, there's another dog. So if I had 15 cats, that would be 3 rows. You're going to have 3 dogs. Number 4, how many cats are there if there are 5 dogs in the apartment complex? So again, we're comparing cats and dogs. And if you wanted to put dogs on top and cats on bottom, that's fine too. So there are 5 cats for 1 dog. I want to find out for 5 dogs. That means that the bottom term, dogs, has to turn into 5. So 1 times 5 makes 5. 5 times 5 makes 25. For every 5 dogs, there will be 25 cats. The only pets in the apartment complex are cats and dogs. If there are 10 dogs, how many pets are there? 25 cats. Now, hint, this problem is comparing dogs to pets. If you look at the original picture, there's 1 dog in the picture and a total of 6 pets. So this time we're comparing dogs to pets. So I'm going to write 1 dog for every 6 pets. Now, if there's 10 dogs, that means I need to change the 1 dog into 10. So 1 times 10 is 10. So I multiply the bottom term by 10 also. 6 times 10 is 60. For every 10 dogs, there will be 60 pets in the complex. You make 5 cups of punch by making 3 cups of cranberry juice with 2 cups of apple juice. How much cranberry juice and how much apple juice do you need to make 4 times the original recipe? Hint, to make punch, you need to mix the cranberry and apple juice together. So the question says you make 5 cups of punch by mixing 3 cups of cranberry and 2 cups of apple. So I want you to picture getting 3 cups of cranberry juice, pouring that into a pitcher, 2 cups of apple, pouring that into a pitcher, mixing it, and that's your punch. Now, how much cranberry juice do you need to make 4 times the original recipe? So here I decided to make a table. So I'm comparing cranberry to apple juice. So I first started off with the recipe. 3 cups of cranberry and 2 cups of apple makes 5 cups of punch. So I wrote that in the front, in the bottom, that it makes 5 cups. Now, I wanted to fill out a table, and I showed, what if I doubled the recipe? So I multiplied by 2. Then that would make 10 cups of punch. I would need 6 cups of cranberry juice, 4 cups of apple. Then the next column, what happens if I took the recipe, multiplied it by 3? But the question is asking, how much juice will you need to make 4 times the recipe? So if I wanted to do this, I would take the recipe numbers, the top term, 3 times 4 makes 12, 2 times 4 makes 8. So to make 4 times the recipe, you'll need 12 cups of cranberry juice and 8 cups of apple juice. Now, I did not have to make a table. I could have just made equivalent ratios just like I did with the cats and dogs, but I did want to show you how I could also create a table. You can pause, watch this again, and make your own notes, or you can move on to the classwork problem.